was your first day in my apartment?
Yes.
But then we were running around the rain in the quarantine zone,
Yes.
right? That was crazy.
Yeah.
That was like such a massive set.
Mm-hmm.
And to think that it was built for an episode instead of like an entire multi-season show, it was insane to me.
Yes, actually.
It was like a town. And
they did that several times as well. It wasn't even just like a standalone, this one incredible set. Like they built whole like the France towns, like
whole worlds that were for like parts of the show or just one episode or a couple or something. And then off we would move to the mountains or to the freezing snow.
Yes.
Yeah. It was amazing. They were the wow moments were a year long for us.
So I know you were a big fan of the game and played it many times. How did you kind of like get into wanting to develop like a TV show of it? Did this project come to you, or did you go after it?
Oh, I was kind of dreaming about it for years. I mean, when I first played the game, when it came out in 2013, I've never had a response to a game like that. I've been playing video games my whole life, all the way back to the Atari 2600. And I don't think I'd ever felt that much about a game throughout it, not just at the end, but throughout. And I was almost sad because I thought I'll never get a chance to bring something like this, to the screen. And then years later, those folks from Sony PlayStation were trying to look at all these titles we have, would you like to adapt any of these? And I looked through this long list. I'm like, where's The Last of Us? And they're like, oh, and Neil's trying to make that a movie. And I'm like, it's not a movie. It's not a movie. It's got to be a show. You need time. It's all about the journey. And the stars aligned. And I sat down with Neil and we talked about it, and just had over lunch. We just talked about the game and what it meant to me and what I would do and how I would adapt it. And then the lunch was over and he just sat there and then he went, okay, let's do it. And that's how it started. And here we are years later and so much work later, but I'm so proud of what we've done.
So when it came through, like I recognized the name of it, but I hadn't played it and you hadn't either, right?
I had not. I hadn't heard of it either. I didn't know what it was until after I was given the first 3 scripts. And but in a very short amount of time, I learned very quickly what it was. And also what fascinated me the most is that in being introduced to The Last of Us Part 1, the game, I realized, knowing that it had come out in 2013, I was able to recognize all of the references and sort of film and show representation, inspirations that were direct references to the game. I was like, oh, the look of Logan is so Last of Us, and so I learned very quickly its influence, and realized that I had been under the influence of the game without knowing the game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting.
When I was younger, I used to watch people play the game on YouTube, and I was terrified of it. I was beyond potentially too young to be watching it, but I just thought it was so interesting. And then weirdly, like a couple days before I even got the audition, this sounds like a lie, before I got the audition, I was with my friend and we were trying to find a movie to watch, as you do. And I was like, oh, we should watch this game. Like there's this game that's like basically a movie. And then we put on Last of Us and we were just watching like a gameplay with no talking, no conversation. And we got like an hour and a half in, both cried at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was just, and then like 2 days later, I got the audition and it was just the most kind of like wacky, surreal coincidence.
Prior to getting the part, well, I'd have to go back 10 years, actually, really. The first experience with it was brief, but it was at a buddy's house who had a PlayStation, and he wasn't around, so I was just playing his games, and he had The Last of Us, and then I got to experience what that first 30 minutes of that game is. And if you've played it, you know what I'm talking about. And of course, I don't want to kind of tilt our hand as to those who haven't experienced yet. But I found it to be, I mean, of course, it was thrilling to be in that scene, but also the fact that you could choose your perspective, you could choose the frame as you're experiencing those first moments. And I thought that was really, really exciting, really innovative. And I was like, man, I want to finish this, but I didn't have the time. You know, I only got to play the first 30 minutes. Never got to play it again. Just never got around to it. I don't know what the deal was. But then you know, I take my meeting with Craig when he's telling me, you're our guy. And he's like, have you played the games? And I was like, you know, I just started because I'm the kind of person that likes to prepare as if I already have the job. And so I had started playing it. The remake came, or not the remake, but the remaster for PlayStation 4 came out, and I was playing that one. And so yeah, it's I spent 2.5 months playing it, leading up, literally finished 2 days before we shipped out to Calgary. And it took me that long because of how dense the story is and how
open every drawer and everything like that.
Oh, of course, that's me too. I'm somebody who likes to explore everything. But also, it took me, and it was mostly the story and how kind of heart-wrenching it always was. Yeah. And there's only so much you can take in any given time emotionally. But then, of course, there's only so many times you can see your throat get ripped out when you made the wrong move, and you have to start again. But yeah, so I did. I had the full experience before we started.
Meet your character at an earlier point in his life too, and how was that to be able to go back and kind of connect the relationships he had there with the one he makes with Ellie later?
I feel so lucky actually to have that, in that it feels like almost a rehearsal towards the man he becomes for the story. And to have this amazing, heartbreaking experience with my daughter Sarah, played by Nico Parker, who was amazing, and the catalyst to basically set everything up for at least Joel and his relationship to Ellie, and to find even more of a mirror of himself in you know, in someone else. And there's just so much opportunity there, and luck, frankly, to have so much laid out for you emotionally and psychologically, and just such a very specific map and guide to follow. And the way that we shot it as well was the right timeline for my character. So it was just really, I felt very lucky. And I imagine it was challenging because you were coming in, you know, and we'd been shooting for a few weeks already. And you just had to because for me, it felt like I was kind of rehearsing towards the world that we were going to be living in, that you just had to step into.
Yes, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Pedro genuinely is I think of him as one of my closest friends. We speak a lot now, and I think it was so nice because as soon as we kind of started working together, it was kind of an immediate kind of oh, okay, we genuinely really get on, and you're genuinely going to be one of my friends. The rest of my life kind of thing. It was amazing. And I think I was very fortunate to kind of be with him in his lighter and happier moments, obviously not the entire time, but it was too much fun.
It goes without saying, but I'm also obviously a huge fan of Chernobyl as well. And I know you said when you wrote that you wouldn't wait to get the bang out of the way. Everybody knew about that. Not as many know about what will happen in this show, but it's still everybody understands that it's something big will happen, and it will kind of destroy the world. So I was wondering if you had kind of the same idea here, that you wanted to get to that point pretty quickly, or how you thought about introducing that.
It was a real challenge with Chernobyl. For a long time I struggled with how to present this event in a way that wouldn't feel like I was asking people to be surprised. And then finally landed on just starting with it. I think we do a pretty good job of not taking too long to say or do things that you know are coming. We like to stay ahead of the audience as much as we can, and then immerse them. But the one thing I know about The Last of Us is it's the journey that matters more than anything else. Anytime you're adapting material that is popular, you're going to have a large subset of the audience that knows what happens. I knew, I don't know if you knew but when you were watching Titanic, but I knew that it was going to sink.
I had a hunch.
It didn't matter. It was about the journey and the relationships, the characters. And so I am sure that people who played the game, well, first of all, there's so much new and interesting and exciting for them as well. But when the things that they know will happen, I still think they're, as the kids are saying now, it's going to hit in a different way. It just hits you in a different way. It really does. So I think,
and a good example of that is the episode we get to spend with Bill and Frank.
Yes.
So was there a particular thing that you really wanted to get in there that you discussed earlier?
Yeah. Well, I said to Neil that there was an opportunity to investigate thematically what it meant to actually be safe in a dangerous world. Bill has created safety. Well, what happens inside of that safety? Is it lonely? Is it sad? Is it beautiful? It gave us a chance to also show time passing, to show how the world changed somewhat between the beginning of the pandemic to where we are now in the story. And it let us explore this theme that I'm kind of obsessed with, which is that love is the most beautiful, wonderful, creative human emotion there is, but it's also the most dangerous human emotion, because love is the thing that leads to fear and anger and xenophobia and tribalism and also choices like my child is worth more than your child because I love my child. These are dangerous things, and we really explored. It was all there in the game, and we've expanded it here in the show, and we get to do that through these new explorations, like the way we do with Bill and Frank.
Yeah, and I kind of think that's an episode that proves why this works as a TV show as well. So
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I know because I made Chernobyl with a lot of Swedes. If you can impress a Swede, you've done something right. You guys are tough, and you're tough in a good way. You're like, show me.
What kind of were your reactions to reading that story arc out for your character?
I think what I was so kind of pleased with is it stays true in the game in the sense of there's consistent reminders of my character for Joel and how that shapes his character and shapes his eventual kind of character arc, and how it's defined him in a way. And I thought it was so lovely to see script-wise to kind of see that playing out consistently throughout the show. So yeah, I think because for me, it's for what it is, it's quick and it's incredibly stressful and tumultuous in the moment. But then I think the long-lasting effects you see instilled in Joel. And I think that what was so lovely about reading the script and everything is that you can really see it, and you see it even more so being played, obviously beautifully portrayed by Pedro. So I think that was incredibly, it felt good to know that the legacy was carried on.
Anytime you try to do something great, it's hard work. The joy comes from, on one hand, I got to tell the story at Naughty Dog, which is like the best people in the game industry, and now I feel so privileged. I get to do it again with the best TV people like in the industry, right? The best prosthetic people, the best VFX, for my money, the best cast. I get to work with Craig Mazin and like write scripts with him. Like it's just a wild, mind-blowing experience that we get to tell the story for fans of the game, but also for a whole new audience that doesn't know anything about The Last of Us, and they get to go on this crazy, emotional, harrowing ride with Joel and Ellie.
So I know we only have a short amount of time left, but if there would be multiple seasons and maybe flashbacks or something like that, would you still want to be a part of this family, or do you want to be a viewer with the rest of us from
I mean, in whatever way they would have me, I would join back in a heartbeat. I feel like I'd potentially be too old to be playing a 14-year-old by that time, but I will age myself down if I had to. But also, I'm completely content being a viewer and getting to watch the incredible work that they will produce. So in whatever way they will have me, I will happily just sit back and watch them all completely kill it.
Yeah. So playing the game, it's really scary with the clickers, and you hear that sound. I was wondering how it was on set, because from what I've gathered, they really did a number on those prosthetics and everything that. How was it to like actually see that in real life?
No, Scary's right, man. Scary is right. You hit it on the head, and it's interesting. It's one part giant escape room, Last of Us escape room. It's one part Nightmare Factory, which is like an old haunted house we used to have in Austin. Is that down my neighborhood in South Austin? There's a place called the Nightmare Factory, and which is I don't know, for some reason I'm sparking my mind. I remember when I was like 12 and I was walking through there with my brother, my girlfriend, and her best friend, and I remember at one point I could barely move forward because everyone's just weighing me down. They're all holding on to me, and I'm taking very small steps through this, trying to get through this haunted house, but I have to do it very slowly because everybody's dragging me. I'm dragging everyone. And at one point I look around and can't find my little brother. And I was like, where's my brother? Where's my brother? He's like, I'm down here, Gabe. He's literally like hiding like this. But that's what it is. That's the feeling of it. I mean, you're surrounded by threats, and anything could be there around the corner. And in the game, as you know, there's a lot of really scary moments. I usually try to get out ahead of those. Sometimes they're stuck to the walls and they come out of the walls, and then I usually try to preemptively just take those out because I'm anticipating them jumping out and get me. But yeah, man, it was all there. I mean, prosthetics, fire, the threat is all there, and we could just respond as very naturally.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see the rest. So best of luck with the premiere, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, brother.